Superintendent Jamie Zettler, Acting Regional Commander, Federal Policing, Central Region, Chief Superintendent Catherine Stevenson of Intelligence Services, and Inspector Pete Morris of the Emergency Task Force. Following remarks, they will be available to take questions from media. Chief Demkiw.
Hello, everyone. We are here today to provide an update on an ongoing investigation into separate firearm discharges that we believe are connected. As part of this investigation, we executed a number of search warrants and arrested 2 individuals. A third individual, also alleged to be connected to these incidents, has been previously arrested by the Halton Regional Police Service in April and has since been charged with multiple offenses. Also in connection with this investigation, there's an outstanding suspect, Zara Jabi. We are doing everything we can to find and arrest him. During the operation last week, one of our members, Constable Mark Benizzato of the Emergency Task Force, was shot and killed. This is an incredibly difficult moment for all of us. Mark's family has lost a husband, a father, and a son. And as a service, we've lost a colleague and a friend. This is an SIU investigation, but I can say that the suspect in Constable Penizzato's death is in the hospital right now, in police custody, and will be charged with first-degree murder. The members of our emergency task force are amongst the highest trained officers in this country. They respond to the most dangerous calls. They protect this city. They safeguard their fellow officers. And they serve with exceptional courage. We owe them a tremendous debt of gratitude for the risks they take and the sacrifices they make each and every day. During the operation last week, we recovered 2 firearms, a 9mm handgun and a .45 caliber handgun, both of which originated in the United States of America. These details are important, as this investigation involves at least 6 shooting incidents in the Greater Toronto Area linked to a 9mm handgun, and at least 21 shooting incidents in the Greater Toronto Area linked to a .45 caliber firearm. This is an ongoing investigation, and we are still doing ballistic testing, and more arrests and charges could come at a later date. Before I continue, I want to thank our Integrated Gun and Gang Task Force, who worked with the support of our Counterterrorism Security Unit. I want to thank our Forensic Identification Team and the Center of Forensic Sciences. I also want to thank our partners, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and their Emergency Response Team, and the National Security Enforcement Team, as well as the York Regional Police, Peel Regional Police, Durham Regional Police Service, and the Halton Regional Police Service. We work together. These are integrated efforts focused on doing everything we can to prevent violence, disrupt criminal activity, and hold offenders accountable. Now, today, as we're talking about these specific arrests, before I pass it over to Chief Superintendent Matthews for more details, I want to address a broader pattern we see here. What we are dealing with in this case and in other unrelated incidences, including shootings at synagogues and Jewish schools, is a recurring and similar modus operandi, and that is criminals for hire. Through encrypted messaging apps, young people are hired to carry out attacks against various targets. And in order to get paid, they're required to film their attacks. Who is paying for this? This is what we are trying to determine, including by working with our RCMP and FBI colleagues. Now, I know there's been a lot of reporting about criminal groups and foreign actors, but what I can tell you is that we are still working actively to investigate who is responsible for orchestrating these criminal acts. What we know is that bad actors are using criminal elements in our city to carry out these dangerous incidents. And it is clear that some of the people hiring these criminals want to create a sense of fear in our communities, including in the Jewish community. While we continue to follow every lead, I want to remind all levels of government of the importance of legislative reform, including key provisions in Bill C-16, such as creating a new offense for the recruitment of persons under 18 to commit a crime, and Bill C-22 on lawful access. If law enforcement does not have the tools needed to prevent violence that is planned and paid for through encrypted messaging apps, it is all of us in our communities that suffer. And the risks and consequences are very real. Thank you, and I'll now pass it over to Chief Superintendent Matthews.
Thank you, Chief. As you'll recall, on Tuesday, March 10th, 2026, two male suspects exited a Honda CR-V on University Avenue and fired multiple rounds into the U.S. consulate. While the building was struck by gunfire, thankfully nobody inside was injured. Surveillance video later showed the suspects firing at the building while also recording the incident on their phones. The suspect vehicle, which was stolen just prior, was found abandoned in Scarborough. The Toronto Police Integrated Gun and Gang Task Force took the lead on the investigation with support from our Counterterrorism Security Unit. At the same time, our partners at the RCMP and the Integrated National Security Enforcement Team, better known as INSET, launched a parallel investigation and classified the incident as a national security matter. As our investigation progressed, we determined this incident was connected to several other firearm discharges investigations across the GTA, both in terms of the individuals involved and the firearms being used. One of those incidents took place in Scarborough, in the Markham Road and Eglinton Avenue East area on March 25th. On March 25th, shots were fired at the front door of a unit inside a residential apartment building. Fortunately, no injuries were reported and the suspects fled the area. The following day, on March 26th, another shooting occurred in Etobicoke in the Islington and Lakeshore Boulevard West area. Shots were fired at a business, damaging the storefront. Responding officers observed a dark Honda Civic fleeing the area at a high rate of speed and initiated a pursuit. The vehicle eventually collided with a fence and the suspects fled on foot. Again, there were no reported injuries. Through the course of the investigation, the Toronto Police determined that 3 incidents were connected and identified several of the individuals alleged to be responsible. On April 14th, Jayon Berger, 18 years of age, of Barrie, was arrested by Halton Regional Police Service in connection with a separate shooting in Oakville. While in custody, he was charged by the Toronto Police Service with multiple firearm offences related to the March 26 shooting in Etobicoke. Through these investigations, suspects were identified, and on June 11th, the Toronto Police Service and the RCMP executed multiple search warrants across Toronto. 2 individuals were arrested. Sheldon Tracy Stewart, 18, of Toronto, has been charged in relation to the shooting at the U.S. consulate. He faces multiple firearms-related charges, as well as charges for failing to comply with his release order. The loaded firearm seized during his arrest, a Glock 17 9mm handgun, has since been connected to 6 additional shootings across the Greater Toronto Area, including incidents in Toronto, Peel, York, and Durham. Again, these were all firearm discharge incidents where no injuries were reported. During the execution of one of those search warrants, that same morning, we alleged that Nicholas Bennett, 19 years of age, of Toronto, shot and killed Toronto Police Service Constable Mark Pinizzato. He will be charged with first-degree murder. Nicholas Bennett will also be charged in connection with the March 25th shooting in Scarborough and the March 26th shooting in Etobicoke. These charges include multiple firearm-related offences as well as breach of probation charges. While ballistic testing remains ongoing, we believe the second firearm seized that morning, a Springfield Armory XD .45 caliber handgun, could be connected to 21 additional shooting incidents in Halton, Peel, and Toronto, including the shooting at the U.S. consulate. During the execution of our search warrants on June 11th, we did not find 19-year-old Zara Jabi. He is outstanding and wanted in connection with the shooting at the U.S. consulate. Jabi was a youth at the time this photograph was taken. While we received judicial authorization to publish his identity to assist us in locating him, that authorization expires on Friday, June 19th. This investigation remains ongoing. While we've been able to connect these firearms to numerous incidents, we are still working to identify not only the individuals responsible for pulling the triggers, but also those who may have directed or organized these acts of violence. I want to again acknowledge the outstanding work of Toronto Police Services Integrated Gun and Gang Task Force, our Counterterrorism Security Unit, our Forensic Identification Services Team, and the Homicide Squad, along with our partners at the RCMP, INSET, the Centre of Forensic Sciences, and York, Peel, Durham, and Halton Police Services. We will continue to work together to identify everyone responsible for these crimes and ensure they are held accountable. Thank you, and we'll now take your questions.
Chief, can you speak to the nature of this gun-for-hire network? It sounds like there might be a sharing of weapons. Do you have any sense of the scope of this network? And if you could speak specifically to the age of the, at least of the young people that you're aware of being co-opted into this. Obviously, we have young people who are just barely of adult sentencing age. Just help us with some of the details.
Sure. The network, as we are investigating, as it's unfolding, it seems there are multiple networks, multi-layered, that the actual actors that are committing the violence are younger in age. In this case, we do not have anybody who is a young person. They're all adults that have committed these offenses, but it's not lost on us that the younger people are being recruited. But as far as these, we'll call them cells or networks go, we believe there's multiple. The sharing of firearms is common. We have 21 different shooting incidents with the .45 caliber, 6 with the 9mm, and we don't believe that it's the same person pulling the triggers in each one. We believe that the firearms are being swapped around.
You mentioned synagogues and Jewish schools specifically. We haven't had confirmation of that yet. Are there any shootings that you can tell us about that you believe are part of this network for hire being responsible?
So the commonality is the MO, or the scheme, as we call it, where we do believe that the people that have committed the shootings at the Jewish schools and the synagogues are involved in a similar scheme. And we take the evidence from the scene of the members videotaping the acts, which is common to ensure that they're getting paid for what they've been sent out to do.
What does this have to do, if anything, with GFL tow trucks being all connected over the weekend?
There definitely is an overlap. The shooting in Oakville was GFL related. Multiple shootings that are part of the linkages of the firearms are GFL related. I'm not going to go into detail with GFL as that investigation is ongoing, but what I will say is that through Project Resolute, Project Guardian, and Project Aegis, we have deployed multiple resources throughout the city in both uniform and plainclothes to keep the city safe. But the shootings related to GFL are ongoing.
What are the encrypted apps that are being used to recruit the youth, and are there any social media apps that are also being used?
So the information that we have thus far, WhatsApp, Telegram, and Signal, but we are expecting to uncover many more on device apps.
And are the youth being initiated into these games, or are they simply are they being initiated to participate in these crimes, or are they simply being paid and kind of cast aside when they've completed their tasks?
So the information that we have, this is for monetary gain. Monetary gain. They're being paid for these acts.
How expansive the network would you describe this as being?
That's very difficult at this point to determine. We do know that there's multiple people are recruiting multiple youth in each cell. We're aware of that. We just do not know the scope of it.
How many cells would you say?
We don't have that information now.
How are you able to navigate in terms of finding these cells? I mean, you're finding the end of it, you're finding people who make the act, but how difficult is it try to actually uncover these cells and these networks and sort of where they originate from?
Yeah, these are very, very complex investigations, as you're kind of highlighting there. That's why we are supporting our federal and provincial partners with legislative reform to allow us to be able to intercept encrypted apps, obviously through judicial authorization. So it is incredibly complex, but I can tell you the work of the members of the Toronto Police Service, all of our partners in both municipal, regional, provincial, and federal are working together, as well as international entities, to try to identify the, we'll call them back ends of these incidents.
With that said, there are these networks, do you believe they go beyond the city scope? Do you believe they're national, possibly international?
We do believe that they go beyond the scope of Toronto for sure.
Can you describe your anger? I mean, obviously one of your own officers was killed by one of these guns for hire. Can you just talk about that?
Can you restate the question?
Can you just describe your emotions? Obviously one of your own officers was killed by one of these alleged guns for hire. So can you just talk about, where you are emotionally?
Well, I think, thank you for that. I think the first emotion that is not escaping anybody is sadness and sorrow. And I will tell you that it's been an incredible few days of public outpouring of support that has given us all strength to work through the grief process that we're going through as a community. And I do want to acknowledge the members of the Emergency Task Force who have continued to respond to the needs of this city each and every day since last week, and continue to go into harm's way with courage and distinction while they travel their unique journey through grief and sorrow. And I just am so incredibly proud and of them and their courage and distinction that they bring to work each and every day, but especially the last few days, as they are a very unique team environment, and they are working together collectively to support each other, support the organization, and continue to serve and respond to the most difficult of calls that a complex city like Toronto has to deal with.
Elaborate a little bit on the motivation of all these shootings. Is it political? You referenced the Jewish institutions and synagogues, and so is it hate motivated, political? What's behind all of it?
Well, that is certainly a subject of ongoing investigation. As far as the shooters themselves, they are being paid for these acts. As far as the organizers and orchestrators in the background, there are multiple dimensions to that. That is very much a subject of ongoing investigation.
Chief, is there overlap with Project South? Has your investigation found that there are any connections to the Guns for Hire network in that case, specifically with the attempted hit on the jail guard?
Well, I think the modus operandis are, can't escape us being an element of consideration in the investigation as we uncover more and more about what's happening. I don't want to comment too much about Project South, as York Region is leading that investigation, but the MO we're describing today continues to be something of an ongoing concern.
Can you describe how the networks work? Is there if the clients pay the shooters directly, or are they going to a middleman?
You want to talk about that?
So while that maintains to be part of the ongoing investigation, the belief is that the middle person involved in the scheme would be the one paying the actual shooters that are taking or committing the acts.
We're under the impression that there's going to be an RCMP representative here, Chief Superintendent. Sorry. Could I ask you a question about the U.S. consulate shooting? As you're aware, the FBI has identified Mohammed al-Sadi as the person who orchestrated this based on a phone call where he's been identified as saying effectively orchestrated a consulate shooting and a shooting at a synagogue here in Toronto. Has that recording been shared with the RCMP, and what is your understanding of whether it's a group or an individual that orchestrated these shootings?
So I am aware of the media reports with regards to this. Certainly, we engage with our international partners as we do with our provincial, municipal partners to gather information. We take a look at the information, we evaluate it, and we collaborate and corroborate it, and we use that evidence to try and move that into evidence and allow us to move forward with the investigation. The investigation is still ongoing. I do not want to comment as to whether or not the validity or not validity of that information, but it is part of our investigation. We're aware of it, and we're continuing to follow up on it.
And perhaps a question for Chief Demkiw. Thank you very much. The operation last week resulted in a tragedy. There's no question about that. And the circumstances surrounding what happened before now will surely be a focus of the SIU investigation. But internally, what kind of work is being done internally to figure out what could have gone so wrong in that operation?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's important to recognize it is an SIU investigation, and we're doing what we need to do with our homicide squad and others to advance the collection of evidence and the presentation of evidence and the SIU process, as well as the criminal process that we expect to unfold as a result of all the search warrants last week. And there'll be a time for further insights once those processes unfold and finish. But let me be really crystal clear here. The emergency task force are the highest trained police officers, quite frankly, in this country that go into the most dangerous of circumstances. And clearly, this was an incredibly dangerous set of events that unfolded that resulted in a tragic loss of life. And again, I just have to commend our ETF members for their courage and the distinction with which they serve each and every day and have continued to do so in response to the needs of our city in the days since this horrible tragedy.
Chief, would it be fair to say, based on the investigation leading up to the search warrant execution, that your officers would have been aware that it was likely there was a gun on the other side of the door, or could be, if there could have been a gun on the other side of the door, they went in with that knowledge?
Well, listen, our ETF is called to those calls. That is the business for which they train and execute in that dangerous environment, again, with courage and distinction, time and time and time again. Our emergency task force are the unit we call for these moments.
Chief, are there wider plans to prevent young people in Toronto from being tied up in these schemes?
Sorry, I missed the beginning of that.
Are there wider plans to prevent young people in Toronto from becoming tied up in these schemes?
Well, I think we have to reflect on the city's 10-year community safety and well-being plan. There is a multidisciplined approach to the prevention of gun violence and the support of young people not getting into a lifestyle that leads to harm and in this case, violence. But let's be clear, young people need to take responsibility for themselves as well. And find a path to not be involved in this space, and picking up a firearm and firing it for profit is just incredibly dangerous criminal behavior for which they need to be held to account. And our justice system needs to make sure it does everything humanly possible to hold those offenders to account and certainly provide a level of deterrence that is an important element in helping young people make sure they stay on the right path, that they understand there are consequences for their actions. And those consequences are serious. And that's why we continue to call for legal reform where necessary to ensure that appropriate deterrence is in place and that the criminal element that is perpetrating this harm can be put behind bars where they belong, frankly, to serve an appropriate sentence to deter others from doing the same.
Any two more questions?
Chief, can you just speak to that Black Creek community? They were sharing condolences for the police community and the loss of your officer, but they're also feeling pretty terrorized by gun violence, including having yet to recover from the death of 8-year-old Jabai. Can you just speak to what resources are available to that community because they feel like they're being left behind?
Yeah, listen, I think that's an important conversation for us to have as a city and city partners. From a policing perspective, we certainly invest in our neighborhood community officer program to make sure we have resources in place for a protracted period of time to build relationships and build a sense of community with everyone who lives there. But also the city agencies are there supporting the community. The city councilor I know is very, very engaged in the community there. So there's a multitude of city partnerships that come together in support of the community, and particularly in that area.
You and Mr. Berger and Mr. Bennett were at the same shooting in March.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
You, Mr. Berger and Mr. Bennett participated in the same shooting on March 25th. Can you talk about efforts to seek Mr. Berger's cooperation afterward? And if their motivation was financial, does that make it simpler for police to incentivize them if they were not initiated into these groups?
I think it's the 26th, the Etobicoke shooting, right? Yeah, so, you know, we always look for the community to help us in these investigations, to provide information that would assist us in our investigations for sure. But I can't get into any discussions that we would have with an accused. You know, we always offer the opportunity for accused to tell their side of the story, and I'll kind of leave it there.
Thank you, everyone.
Toronto Police updating their investigation into a string of shootings, including one at the U.S. consulate. Investigators saying they believe the shootings are connected. New information being released. They say they've recovered 2 guns, a 9mm and a .45 caliber that are being going through ballistic testing right now. 6 shootings connected to the 9mm. They believe 21 shootings connected to the .45 caliber. Police also saying they believe these guns are being shared, used by different criminals right across the GTA. They've also connected to the GFL and synagogue shootings to this investigation on criminal shooters for hire through encrypted apps like Signal and WhatsApp. That's what they're alleging was taking place here, who apparently get paid for shooting and filming these incidents. 3 people have been arrested. They're searching for one more, Zara Jabi, whose picture has been released. Now they say they plan to track down the people who hired these alleged shooters through these encrypted apps, including the, quote, middleman connecting clients to shooters. You're watching CBC News Toronto. We'll have more details and stories from our city when we come back.